Hey y'all, it's Jess. Welcome back to the kitchen table here at Roots and Refuge Farm. Today is the final installment of mine and Goldshaw Farm, Morgan Gold's series, helping you become a better YouTuber. Now today is the burning question. It's the one that everybody wants to know, and we have purposefully waited until last on this because I honestly think that it's one of the least important things that you really need to worry about when you're getting started, and that is gear.
I completely agree, by the way, with that sentiment that it is the least important thing. I think that so many people, particularly when thinking about doing YouTube, right, they're going to get hung up on this idea that, you know, I'm going to start making YouTube videos as soon as I get this camera, and then I'll do this, and then, oh, but now I need to get this light, and now I need to get this thing. And at the end of the day, that's only going to be a blocker and a barrier to you getting started. Starting simple and starting easy it's always so more important just to start than to start with the right stuff. Absolutely.
I completely agree with that. And to be honest, like, I was so hung up on it. When we first started our YouTube channel, I had all this photographer stuff. I was a photographer, but it was not video gear. It was really geared more towards portraiture, which meant it didn't have the flip around screen. It didn't have, and I didn't want to use my cell phone because I felt like that was inferior somehow. This is probably, I don't know, iPhone 6 era, something like that. You know, like it was good enough. It would have done video just fine. But instead I kept trying to make videos with this big DSLR with this portrait lens that I couldn't see myself. It didn't have autofocus on it. This is an older professional portrait camera. And I made things so much more difficult for myself that I didn't produce very much content. I came back to YouTube a year later, deciding to do it again. We used, you know, invested probably $1,000 buying camera, Gorilla Pod, all that stuff. We're gonna do this thing. That sat for a year because honestly, having the camera doesn't make you do the videos.
And I'll say, I actually went the other route. My first couple of videos were basically just shot with this. And, you know, I didn't even have a Gorilla Pod at the time, so it was like me just kind of being like, all right, let's go here. and it was fine. You know, there's some wind noise when I was shooting out in the pasture, and I would have to, like, try to tape it to a stick so that it could stay in place at certain times. But just to try to get out there and get in the arena and start making stuff, it was perfect. It actually got me going, and it got me making videos. And it wasn't until the first, you know, I don't know, maybe 10, 12 videos that I actually got like a real camera with like a flip out screen so I could see myself while I was shooting even. So yeah. I'm a big fan of the best camera you can possibly use if you're starting is your phone. Most cell phones these days have a decent enough camera that you can use it to do at least the basics of a first couple of videos.
I actually shot a vlog recently with my cell phone. I just shot the entire vlog and edited it on my phone, on the iMovie that comes on the phone, and just to show, hey, you can. Like, don't let that hold you back. There's so much technology in this, it's crazy. Like, seriously, cell phone cameras now take better photos than the cameras that I learned photography on when I was at the University of Tennessee. Like, this technology then was just mind-blowing, and now we just completely take it for granted, and we're like, oh, we can't be a YouTuber because all I have is a cell phone.
Oh, completely. I mean, the same thing for me. Like, I actually, on a regular basis, and actually I think it's Casey Neistat who has the quote of, the best possible camera you can use is the one that you have on you. And there are so many times when I'm doing something and working on the farm, and like something's happening right in front of me. Like yesterday, a bobcat ran out right in front of me. This morning, my cat was like having a stare down contest with a chipmunk right in front of me. Like if I had stopped to like go get my camera and bring it out and get it set up and get it going, I would have missed that moment. And the fact that I just had my phone with me and I was able to capture it like immediately, that changes everything. That makes your content so much more immediate. You get such great stuff and access to stuff. And so even though I have a nice camera today, and even though I have like lights and that sort of stuff, I still shoot a ton of stuff just right on my cell phone.
I want people to have that and know that. And I also want to talk about gear and what you can grow into and get, because I think it's good to know. And when I did do photography, I had a very wise teacher that told me He said, don't worry about having the best of the best. He said, use what you have until it frustrates you with its limitations. And that was such a huge thing for me, because when I was getting started in photography, I thought, I need to go buy this $4,000 camera if I'm going to be successful. But the thing is that $4,000 camera was better at taking photos than I was at operating it. And so really I needed to just learn how to take photos. And eventually it got to the point that the entry-level camera was frustrating because I was faster than the camera. I was faster at adjusting things than the camera gave access to do. And I grew out of it. And I think that when you're making videos, that's really what you need to be thinking about is, am I growing out of this gear and warranting new gear? And then you're always growing.
Completely. And here's actually another thing I'll say. If people are thinking about a gear upgrade, the first thing I would do is not actually a camera at all, but a microphone. Because what I have found is people are going to be much more likely to put up with a video that's shot poorly but sounds great than a video that is shot very well and sounds horrible. Bad audio is the thing that will kill people on YouTube. And if it's like, it sounds like you're underwater and they can't hear you, and there's like weird noises in the background or wind or all that sort of stuff, that's actually probably the first place. If I was going to invest like a first $100 on some equipment, I would probably get a microphone adapter for my phone so that I could actually have better sound. So that would be number one. And then number two would be a tripod, because the other horrible thing for your picture, it's not so much the processor or the lens or the format that you're shooting in. It's so much more important to be focused on having a nice, stable, steady shot that's, not making people seasick when they watch it on their TV. Like, that's actually so much more important than getting a good, fancy camera. And I think people look past that so much, and they just see everybody with the DSLR, with the flip screen, and say, oh, I need to have a camera that looks like that. When I would actually say I would focus on the basics first before you go into those other things.
Yeah, I agree entirely with the addressing your audio quality and the stillness of your picture are probably two of the biggest ways to stretch your money to make sure you're making a good impact on your videos. Now, like, what is it, like, what do they say, the law of diminishing return? That basically there's a level of money that you spend on things that it improves it like a certain amount. Like, you can spend, like, going from the cell phone to the camera, you may spend, $500, $600 for a, kind of entry-level vlog camera from the phone, and you get this return where you've got maybe, different things. You might have a clearer picture, you may have better audio, you might get this setup, and then you might upgrade from that setup to like the nice DSLR with even nicer microphone, and it's like, wow, okay, I got even higher video quality. But then there's kind of a point where it just falls off. You're getting excited about new gear, and people do, and it's fun, and if it's your hobby, that's fine. But do you need it? Not at all.
Oh, no. The difference that you're going to experience from going from like $1,000 setup to a $2,000 setup is not double. It's not even 50%. It's probably not even 25%. It's incrementally better. But I do think that the difference between going from, just your cell phone to a basic GoPro setup, like I can show you guys, is a significant improvement. And then going from that GoPro setup to a basic DSLR setup is going to be, probably twice as good for about twice as much money. But once you get past that, yeah, your returns go down significantly.
So I guess let's talk about like what we're using to produce the videos we have, so people can see my content and your content, and we can kind of talk about our setups. Now I have two like general setups that I'm gonna use. I do occasionally grab shots off my phone. We do have a GoPro and a drone that kind of adds some, I guess, spice to the videos sometimes and some different things. But to be completely honest, like, those are kind of Jeremiah's toys. Like, he got those and he shoots with them more. I don't shoot with them very much because the feel of my content is not super produced. It's very raw. It's walking around with a friend. And so I tend to stick with just showing people my little, you know, rose-colored glasses view of my life. And that works fine with my vlog setup. Now, I did have a G7X, which was like one of the ones that everybody touted and said, this is the best vlog camera for a beginner. And I got one. It was my first big investment on my YouTube channel. And it was good. It served its purpose to do the vlogging. I had some major issues, and I had the older one. It didn't have an external microphone, and so then the audio was a big issue. There was always wind noise. It had some issues coming in and out of focus. And so when I needed to upgrade my like kick around vlog camera, I actually went with the M50, Canon's newer offering, and I love that camera so much. I tell people all the time, this is such a good camera at the price point. What is it, like $600, I think? Something in that range? I think you can get the creator kit with the Rode VidMic Go, and that I think is maybe 7 or 8. Anyway, it's a fantastic camera for the vlogger. And so when people are saying, I'm getting ready to invest in my first vlog camera, that's really like my go-to recommendation. It handles light well. The sound is good whenever you put the external microphone on it. I really have really enjoyed that camera.
I actually have a different recommendation for people, and again, this is like the option. So you mentioned using a GoPro as sort of just like a kind of fun little thing that you sprinkle in there here and there. I use a GoPro significantly for a lot of my content. So I have 2 cameras. I have one is a Sony a6400, which is sort of like a little bit of a next step up. It's a mirrorless camera. It has different interchangeable lenses you can use to give it different looks. And so when I'm doing sort of more visually styled things, I use that. But my GoPro is my go-to like workhorse camera, and I love it because I have a GoPro Hero 7 Black, which you can get right now for probably about $325 new. And then I have a special attachment that connects the like an external microphone, like a Rode microphone, to it. And I have a special little cage that lets me clip the microphone to that. And that setup is the ultimate vlogging setup, in my opinion, because the GoPros are great because they're very stabilized and they have like this in-camera stabilization. And so you can move around and it looks like you're using a gimbal. Your, motion shots are nice and steady and smooth, and it just looks so much more professional. On top of that, the GoPro doesn't have a flip screen. And a lot of beginner YouTubers, I've noticed, make this critical error of when they're shooting their video, they're often looking right at the screen instead of at the lens. And so you get so distracted that the audience can tell you're not looking at them, you're looking at the screen. And so because of that, it makes the content weaker. Well, the GoPro doesn't have a viewfinder or a flip screen. And so you're forced to look right into that lens. But because it's a wide-angle lens, you're always going to be in frame. And so it's just such an easy, simple setup. I use it when I'm out working in the pasture, running and chasing ducks and geese around and doing stuff and not wanting to have to think about what I'm doing. And so I highly recommend this. We can leave a link, I think, in the description of this one. I have a whole package of a Gorilla tripod, the case, the microphone adapter, the microphone, and the GoPro. I think you can get the whole setup for about $450 right now. And so I think that if somebody's just getting started, and especially if they don't have a ton of experience, it's the best possible way to go.
That's really awesome. I'm going to have to get the cage and the attachment because we actually have the same GoPro, and I agree, it's so steady. Like, the reason why Maya wanted it was he puts it on like the front of the four-wheeler whenever he's like out going after the horses, and you can literally mount that thing on a four-wheeler and it's so smooth you can't even tell that it's bouncing on a four-wheeler. It's crazy. See, my other setup that I use, I've got my M50, and that's kind of like, I call it my kicking around camera. So I have an 80D, like the Big Daddy vlogging camera Canon makes, and I've got the VidMic Pro that's mounted on top of that, and it's so heavy. It's so heavy, and for somebody like me, I'm not super strong, I'm pretty petite. So like you want to hold your camera angle at a point where it's not, you don't want to shoot a video looking up your nose, and you gotta keep that in mind when you're choosing your gear, and be realistic about how you're planning on using this. Are you always gonna set it up on a tripod and like talk to the camera that way? Are you gonna hold it to vlog? If you're gonna hold it to vlog, can you physically hold it to vlog? I see so many people getting into like the big DSLRs because they want that big vlogging rig, and then they cannot feasibly vlog with it because it's too heavy. And that's what I did. So I actually bought, after vlogging for quite a while, a monopod, like a Manfrotto monopod. It's what Peter McKinnon suggested, and it was like one of my later on gear things. Like I'd gotten this massive DSLR I could barely use because it was so heavy that I needed this monopod to make it functional. Watched all these videos, got the monopod, and I really like this setup now, except for the fact that it's really cumbersome and I have to make myself use it.
Well, I think that that's a really great point that you make about sort of the cumbersome nature of certain gear and using it. Because like I have a drone too, for example, and I maybe trot it out once a month and I get some B-roll, and then I just try to use that and sprinkle it into my videos because it's such a hassle. Like I gotta make sure the batteries are charged, I gotta take off, I can only do it in certain types of weather. Like it's just a lot of work, and so I find that I don't use it. But my cell phone, my GoPro, that's just like grab it and go, and I just make sure I have charged batteries, and there's like the sky's the limit. And so I think people should not underestimate the accessibility of their gear, and if they can use it and get to use it very simply and easily, they're going to take such advantage of it. I have things like lights and other doodads for shooting green screen if I wanted to. I never use that stuff because ultimately I'm focused on telling a good story about the farm, and so that requires me to be out in the farm with a camera doing stuff, and that requires a simple, easy, lightweight, and durable camera setup.
Absolutely. And I think that in choosing what gear you would want, being able to really think about what is my style, like what do I want my style to be? What do I want my story to be? What feel am I giving?
No, I think that's great. Now let's talk about the two other sort of things that I feel like are hallmarks of vlogging and YouTube. And I think the first one is this guy, right? The Gorilla Pod. All right, what are the upsides and downsides of this guy?
Well, I can tell you that in my now 2 years of pretty steady content creation, I've been through my fair share of Gorilla Pods. It's kind of one of those things that I haven't found a great alternative, but the Gorilla Pod itself, I always feel a little resentful when I'm buying another one.
No, exactly, because actually the one that I'm holding up here is not even one I use anymore because like this leg like pops off constantly now. Like they're very handy because you know you can bend them, right, and you can hold them out in a way where you can have that selfie shot work really well. But at the same time, you need to find a place to hook them onto. I need like fence posts or trees to wrap them around, and even then you're kind of taking your life in your hand with your camera because it could come crashing down. And so they're kind of hit or miss. I actually, for somebody who's just starting out, would recommend a tripod over a Gorilla Pod, even though it seems like everybody uses a Gorilla Pod.
And they do fall apart, unfortunately. So I think if you go into it with the expectation of like, well, it's pretty good. We've used a lot of super glue.
So the other thing is though the big fluffy thing that goes on top of the microphone. What is that? Why do people use it? What's the deal with those things?
So the dead cat, okay, that has caused a lot of exclamations from my kids. They're like, dead cat? And then now they know what it's called. Or I'll mention it, I'll accidentally like say it in a video, something about the dead cat, without any like real context or like showing it, because I'll forget that most people don't know what that is. And it never fails, somebody will comment and be like, what did you say? Dead cat? Like, so yeah, the big fluffy thing is called a dead cat. Actually, some microphones come with those, not all do. Sometimes you have to pay extra for that, but the gray fluffy thing, the dead cat, goes over your microphone and is a wind block to help with the sound. And there are all different levels of microphones. I have one of the lower end ones, the VidMic Go, and then I also have one of the higher end ones, the VidMic Pro. What is it, like, I think the lower end's like $70-ish, the higher end something like $230. So pretty substantial price difference. I can tell a quality difference, but not so much that I still use the lower end one really regularly. So not so much that I've like tossed that aside.
Yeah, no, I actually use the same 2 microphones as well, and you know, I will definitely swear by the dead cat. So I spend a lot of time shooting out in our pasture when it's really windy and crazy, and it's not perfect. You'll still potentially get wind noise if on a, you know, like we had the bomb cyclone come through the other day, and that was hard to shoot in. But generally speaking, it'll cut out a lot of that wind noise, which, you know, back to what we were saying earlier, really hurts the quality of your videos. And so I think it's totally worth it if you're going to invest in a microphone to also invest in a dead cat. If somebody's going to invest in more than $500 on a camera, I would say that you should also be absolutely investing in that microphone, and like almost bake that into your thinking of the price. Like those onboard camera microphones for the higher end cameras are cruddy, and there's just no way around it. And so it's worth that extra $100 or whatever it's going to be for that extra microphone, because you'll know that difference big time when you see those videos. So just bring it all together. If somebody's out there trying to think about starting their own YouTube channel, what do they start with?
What they have. I mean, absolutely with what they have. That's the first step. And then when they're ready to invest, I just suggest that they really assess what it is that they're trying to produce and find the gear that's going to best support that. And like we just talked about, 3 really vastly different options, you know, like the super grab and go vlogger setup, and then we both kind of have that mid-grade mirrorless camera setup, and then the big cumbersome DSLR that produces stunning, you know, like video quality. Those are gonna produce 3 very different kinds of content. And so I think use what you have first, and when it comes into buying like your gear setup, really just assess what you need and go from there.
And I think it just comes back to your story too, right? Like, you know, the gear does not matter. Your story matters. Focus on that, and focus on being you and being authentic and telling that story, and all the other stuff you're going to figure out along the way.
Absolutely. Well, Morgan, thank you so much for doing this series with me. I'm really thankful and glad that we get to offer this to people. I think it's a really good way to give back and just say, hey, here's some information for you to run with. And the bottom line, though, guys, that we want to encourage you with, you can't emulate what we do. Obviously, this is so different. We actually chose to do this together because we're so different, but both having success. So yeah, I want to
just go out there and create, guys.
Yeah.